Have you ever stood at the edge of a crowded room, the hum of voices swirling around you, and felt an invisible wall rise between you and the people you once knew by heart? As the years stretch on, you might notice the phone calls growing sparse, like leaves falling from a tree in late autumn. Friends who once filled your days with shared secrets now seem like distant stars, their light dimming with time. Family gatherings, once loud with overlapping stories and clinking glasses, shrink into echoes of absence. Fewer chairs filled, fewer voices calling your name. The invitations that used to flutter into your life like confetti slow to a trickle, then stop altogether, leaving you clutching at shadows of connection. It's an ache that creeps in quietly, a hollow that widens with each passing year, until you're left wondering, why do they leave? The frustration stings, the loneliness bites, but beneath that pain lies a truth both daunting and hopeful. Much of this drift isn't random. It's shaped by choices, habits, and patterns you can name, understand, and change. In this exploration, we're diving into 10 piercing reasons, not just 6, but 10, why people slip away as we age. These aren't vague guesses. They're the threads of human nature, woven into behaviors and attitudes that can push even the closest souls apart. But here's the light in the dark. Once you see them, you can shift them. Stay with me to the end, because these insights, some familiar, some startling, come with keys to unlock stronger, lasting bonds. If you've ever felt the people you love drifting beyond reach, this is your chance to pull them back. Let's begin. Number 1. Neglecting personal growth. Imagine two men sitting on a park bench beneath a canopy of rustling oaks, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. One, Edward, a wiry figure with a mop of grey hair, pulls a worn paperback from his coat pocket, a biography of a scientist he's never heard of until last week. His eyes gleam as he recounts a tidbit about black holes to his companion, his voice alive with wonder, even as he stumbles over the details. The other, Paul, slouches beside him, his face etched with lines of disinterest. "I don't see the point of all that," he grumbles, waving a hand dismissively. "The world I knew made sense. None of this newfangled rubbish." Edward's phone buzzes with a text from a young neighbor, eager to swap book recommendations. Paul's stays silent, its screen as blank as his curiosity. Over months, Edward's bench becomes a hub. Friends linger, drawn by his spark, while Paul sits alone, a figure fading into the background. The slow death of personal growth is one of the subtlest yet sharpest blades that severs ties as we age. Growth isn't about chasing youth or piling up skills like trophies. It's the pulse of a mind that refuses to calcify, a heart that beats with questions, that seeks the unfamiliar even when the body slows. Edward, at 68, doesn't claim to understand quantum physics, but he listens to podcasts about it, scribbling notes on napkins. He asks his grandson about video games, laughing at his own clumsy attempts to play, and marvels at the intricacies of a world he'll never fully grasp. Paul, though, has drawn a line at 1985. His stories loop back to the same factory job, the same old haunts, the same complaints about kids today. What once charmed as nostalgia now feels like a wall, shutting out anyone who lives in the now. Friends don't leave him in a dramatic huff. It's a quiet retreat, a call unreturned, a visit skipped, because conversations with him feel like trudging through quicksand. The remedy lies in motion, however small. Picture Edward at home, flipping through a library book on gardening, then texting a friend about planting tulips next spring, or wandering a museum with his daughter, asking her to explain the abstract art he doesn't get, their laughter bridging decades. Growth is in the questions he asks. What's that like? How does it work? And the humility to fumble and learn. Paul could join him, could trade his scoff for a "tell me more," but he doesn't. And so the gap widens. You don't need to run marathons or decode AI to stay vibrant. Just stay awake. Try a recipe that scares you. Listen to music you'd usually skip. Ask someone younger what lights them up. When you grow, you glow, and people gravitate to that light. Let it dim, and they'll drift, not out of malice, but because they're moving while you stand still. Number 2, becoming too negative or complaining. Often step into a sunlit diner on a Saturday morning, where the clatter of plates and the murmur of voices weave a cozy tapestry. At one booth, Clara, a woman with a crown of silver curls, sips her coffee and grins as she tells her niece about the time she spilled flour all over her kitchen trying to bake bread. A disaster turned into a story that ends with both of them laughing until tears brim. Across the room, Harold occupies a lone table, his fork stabbing at a pile of eggs as he mutters about the runny yolks, the noisy kids 2 booths down, and how diners aren't what they used to be. Clara's table fills with family, drawn by her warmth. Harold stays empty, his grumbles a barrier no one dares cross. Negativity, like a storm cloud rolling in, darkens the air around you, and it's a swift, silent force that drives people away as the years stack up. It's not that life doesn't bruise us all. Clara's hands tremble from arthritis, and she's buried friends she thought she'd grow old with. But she chooses her lens, a quip about her rebellious joints, a nod to the sunrise she caught that morning, a question about her niece's new job. Harold sees only flaws, his aches, the world's decline, the endless list of what's wrong. He doesn't mean to push people away. He thinks he's just keeping it real. But to those around him, it's a weight they can't carry. His daughter used to call every Sunday, savoring their chats about old movies. Now, she dreads the inevitable pivot to complaints about his health, the government, her lazy generation. She still loves him, but the calls taper off, each one leaving her drained. The shift isn't about silencing pain, it's about balance. Clara vents too, confessing to her sister over tea about a sleepless night. But then she pivots. "At least the moon was gorgeous. Did you see it?" She asks, she listens, she finds the thread of light. Harold could try it, mention the eggs, sure, but follow with a memory of the best breakfast he ever had, or ask the waitress about her day. It's a small turn, but it matters. People don't flee hardship, they flee the absence of hope. If you've felt the chill of distance, listen to your voice. Are you a storm or a hearth? Weave in gratitude, a bird you heard, a kindness you saw. Watch how it softens the edges. Because when you radiate even a flicker of brightness, people don't just stay. They seek you out, hungry for the warmth you bring. Number 3, failing to nurture relationships. Picture a quiet street at dusk, porch lights flickering on like stars against the deepening blue. On one porch, Evelyn rocks in her chair, a phone pressed to her ear as she laughs with an old college friend, planning a lunch next week. Down the block, Martin sits alone, staring at the empty swing where his son used to play, waiting for a call that never comes. Evelyn's mailbox overflows with cards, birthday wishes, thank yous for the cookies she dropped off, while Martin's gathers dust. The difference? Evelyn tends her bonds like a gardener, coaxing life from the soil. Martin lets them wither, assuming they'll endure on their own. Failing to nurture relationships is a slow poison that seeps into the cracks of aging, turning closeness into distance without a single loud goodbye. Evelyn, at 74, doesn't wait for the world to come to her. She scribbles notes to her grandkids, messy doodles and thinking of you, and calls her brother to reminisce about their childhood pranks, her voice a lifeline across miles. She remembers birthdays, asks about soccer games, invites neighbors for tea on her chipped china set. It's not grand. She's no millionaire hosting galas, but it's steady, a rhythm of care that says, "You're in my heart." Martin, though, has slipped into stillness. His son used to visit every month, bringing coffee and stories. Now, Martin can't recall the last time he dialed first. He thinks, if he cared, he'd call, but doesn't see the other side. His son, tired of always reaching, wonders if Martin even wants him around. The silence grows, a chasm built from missed chances. Relationships don't survive on autopilot. They crave touch, however light. Evelyn's friend once drifted after a move, but a single postcard, "Miss your laugh," brought her back. Martin could do it too. A text to his son, "How's work?" A note to a cousin, a knock on a neighbor's door. It's not about begging for attention, it's about showing you value theirs. If you've sensed a void, ask, "When did I last reach out?" Not out of need, but love. Start small, a call, a memory shared, a plan to meet. Consistency stitches the fabric tight. When people know they matter, they linger. Neglect them, and they fade. Not from spite, but from the ache of feeling forgotten. Number 4, refusing to adapt to change. Step into a lively living room on a rainy afternoon, where a family sprawls across mismatched couches, the patter of drops against the windows, a soft backdrop to their chatter. At the center, Grandpa Victor, his glasses perched on his nose, squints at a smartphone. His teenage granddaughter, Lily, presses into his hands. "Okay, show me this TikTok thing," he says, chuckling as she swipes through clips of dancing dogs and lip-syncing kids. He fumbles, accidentally liking a video of a skateboarding cat, and they dissolve into laughter, her arms slung around his shoulder. Across the room, Uncle Ted sits rigid in an armchair, his arms crossed, lips pursed. "I don't get why you're all glued to those screens," he snaps. "In my day, we talked face to face. None of this garbage." Lily shrugs. Her cousins drift back to Victor, and Ted's corner grows quieter, his voice a fading echo. Refusing to adapt to change, whether it's technology, shifting values, or the rhythms of a new era, is a stubborn anchor that drags relationships underwater as we age. The world doesn't stand still, and neither do the people in it. Victor, pushing 80, doesn't love the digital flood. He misses the scratch of vinyl records and the weight of a newspaper, but he bends, not breaks. He asks Lily about her apps, listens to her explain memes with the patience of a man meeting a foreign land, even tries a clumsy selfie that sends her into giggles. It's not mastery, it's willingness. Ted, though, clings to a 1970s blueprint, dismissing texts as cold, social media as shallow, younger generations as lost. His nostalgia, once a bridge to share stories, now feels like a barricade. Every "back in my day," a brick that walls him off. His nephews used to ask about his old baseball days. Now they sidestep, tired of the lectures that follow. Adapting isn't about abandoning yourself, it's about meeting others halfway. Victor doesn't dance on TikTok, but he watches, asks, learns enough to say, That's wild. Tell me more. Ted could too. Could text his sister instead of waiting for her call. Could ask his nephew why gaming matters. Could listen without judging. It's not agreement, it's curiosity, a bridge across the years. Change is a current. Swim with it, even slowly, and you stay afloat. Fight it, and you sink alone. If you felt people pulling back, ask, am I open or locked in place? Try it. A question about their world. A step into the unfamiliar. When you flex, they stay. Not because you've changed who you are, but because you've shown you still see them. Number 5. Becoming overly dependent on others. Picture a quiet suburban street at golden hour, where 2 houses sit side by side, their porches bathed in the soft glow of dusk. On one, Ellen, a spry widow with a walker, waves to her son as he drops off groceries. "Thanks, love. I'll bake you those cookies next week," she calls, her voice bright with gratitude. She hobbles inside, determined to sort the bags herself, saving the heavier lifting for him, but managing what she can. Next door, Frank slumps in a rocking chair, his phone buzzing with a call from his daughter. "Can you swing by again?" he asks, his tone flat. "The trash needs out, and I'm out of milk." She sighs. He didn't say thanks last time, didn't try the grabber she bought him. Just waited for her to fix it all. Ellen's porch hums with visitors. Frank's stays still, his reliance a wall that keeps even love at bay. Becoming overly dependent, emotionally, physically, or otherwise, tilts the balance of relationships, and it's a heavy load that pushes people away as we age. Ellen, at 76, knows her limits. Her knees creak, her grip falters, but she guards her independence like a treasure. She leans on her son when the stairs loom large, but she pays it back with stories, a batch of oatmeal raisin, a listening ear when he vents about work. Frank, though, has surrendered too much. His daughter used to visit with joy, bringing her kids to play in his yard. Now, it's duty, hauling trash, fetching pills, hearing his woes without a word of thanks or a question about her life. He doesn't see it as burdening. He's just old, he'd say, but she feels like a servant, not a daughter. It's not the help she minds, it's the one-way street, the sense that he's stopped trying. Balance is the lifeline here. Ellen asks for aid, but gives too. Advice from her nursing days, a laugh over coffee, a nod to her son's own struggles. Frank could shift, use that grabber, say, "I appreciate you," ask about her kids' school play. It's not about never needing. It's about not only taking. If you've noticed distance, reflect. Am I contributing or just consuming? Small steps, handling what you can, offering thanks, checking in, keep the scales even. People don't flee support, they flee obligation. When you hold your own weight and lift theirs too, they stay, not out of guilt, but love. Number 6, holding on to resentment and failing to forgive. Imagine a family dinner unfolding around a long oak table, the air thick with the scent of roast chicken and the clatter of forks. At one end, Aunt Rose, her hair a soft white halo, passes the mashed potatoes to her brother, teasing him about the time he borrowed her bike and crashed it into a ditch 50 years ago. They laugh, the old wound a scar-turned story. At the other end, Cousin Leonard grips his glass, his jaw tight as he glares at his sister across the table. She forgot his birthday last year, again, and he's brought it up twice tonight, his voice sharp with the bitterness he's nursed for months. Rose's end buzzes with warmth, Leonard's chills, his grudge a frost that empties chairs. Holding on to resentment, refusing to let go of old hurts, is a slow poison that seeps into relationships, driving people away as we age with a quiet, relentless force. Rose, at 82, has her share of scars, betrayals, forgotten promises, a niece who borrowed money and never repaid. But she's chosen peace, letting the past settle like dust, rather than stoking it into flame. She forgives not because it's easy, but because she values the now, these fleeting dinners, these voices she won't hear forever. Leonard, though, clings to every slight. His sister's missed birthday wasn't malice. She was swamped with a sick kid. But he replays it, builds it into a monument of neglect. She used to call weekly, apologizing, trying. Now she's stopped. Tired of the wall he won't lower. He thinks he's protecting himself. But he's the one trapped, his anger a cage that keeps others out. Forgiveness isn't erasure, it's release. Rose doesn't pretend the bike didn't break, but she's freed herself to laugh about it. Leonard could too. Could say, "I was hurt, but let's move on." Could ask about her life, instead of wielding silence like a blade. It's a choice. Peace over pride. If you felt people retreat, ask, "What am I carrying? Is it worth the weight?" Let it go, not for them, but for you. And watch the air lighten. When you choose connection over conflict, they return, not because you've forgotten, but because you've made room for them again. Number 7. Losing a sense of humor. New reason. Picture a summer barbecue in a backyard, strung with fairy lights, the sizzle of burgers mingling with bursts of laughter. Uncle Jack, his apron smeared with sauce, stands by the grill, recounting the time he tripped over his dog and landed in a kiddie pool. His booming laugh infectious as the crowd roars, kids tugging at his sleeve for more. Nearby, Aunt Sylvia flips through a magazine, her face a mask of indifference. When a nephew jokes about her infamous burnt pies, she snaps, "That's not funny," her tone cutting the air like glass. Jack's circle grows, Sylvia's shrinks, her humorless edge a shield that repels. Losing your sense of humor, letting life's lightness slip away, is a subtle thief that steals connection as we age. Jack, at 65, doesn't dodge life's punches. His back aches, his car broke down last week, but he finds the absurd in it, spinning mishaps into tales that lift spirits. Sylvia, though, has hardened. Once, she'd giggle at her own kitchen flops. Now, every jest feels like a jab, every laugh a slight. Her nephews used to tease her with love, but her sharp retorts, her refusal to play, have quieted them. It's not that she's joyless, she's guarded, too serious to bend. Laughter is glue. Lose it, and the cracks widen. Humor isn't forced, it's a lens. Jack chuckles at himself, invites others in. Sylvia could too. Could smirk at her pies, toss back a quip. If you felt the chill of distance, ask, "Do I still laugh?" Try it. A self-deprecating tale, a playful nudge. When you lighten, they linger, drawn to the joy you share. Number 8. Withdrawing from social engagement. New reason. Imagine a small-town cafe on a crisp Saturday morning. Its windows steamed with the warmth of brewing coffee and murmured greetings. At a corner table, Marjorie, her scarf still looped around her neck, waves to a group of old classmates, her voice bright as she slides into a chair to swap stories about their grandkids and the new park bench they're fundraising for. Across the street, Harold shuffles past, his eyes fixed on the pavement, ignoring the nod from a neighbor who once shared beers with him on summer nights. Marjorie's calendar fills with book clubs and potlucks. Harold's days blur into silence, his doorstep untouched by footprints but his own. Withdrawing from social engagement, shrinking into yourself as the world hums on, is a quiet retreat that carves a lonely path through aging, pushing people away without a word. Marjorie, at 70, doesn't leap at every event. Her hips protest long walks, but she shows up where she can. A steady presence, with a quick smile and a listening ear. She joins the library's knitting circle, her needles clicking as she chats about yarn and life, her laughter weaving her into the group. Harold, though, has pulled back. Once a regular at the VFW hall, he stopped going when his buddy moved away, muttering, "What's the point?" Invitations dwindled, not from spite, but because people assume he wants the solitude he's chosen. His daughter tries, texting about a movie night, but he replies, "Maybe next time," and the gap widens. He doesn't see it as rejection, he's just tired, he'd say, but to others, it's a closed door. Engagement isn't about constant bustle, it's about presence. Marjorie doesn't knit masterpieces, but she's there, asking, sharing, connecting. Harold could too, could say yes to coffee, nod at a neighbor, join one game of cards. It's a step, not a sprint. If you felt the world recede, ask, "Am I still in it?" Dip a toe back, a chat at the store, a wave across the fence. When you show up, they do too, drawn to the thread you extend. Number 9. Overemphasizing independence. New reason. Picture a quiet apartment building, its halls humming with the soft clink of daily life. On the 3rd floor, Vera, her hair a tidy bun, lugs a bag of groceries up the stairs, her breath sharp, but her chin high. When her neighbor offers a hand, she grins, "Thanks, but I've got it. Come over for tea later, though." Down the hall, Stanley wrestles with a jammed window, sweat beading on his brow. His son knocks, toolbox in hand, but Stanley waves him off. "I don't need help. I'll figure it out," his voice gruff. Vera's kitchen soon fills with chatter. Stanley stays silent. His pride, a wall that keeps even love at arm's length. Overemphasizing independence, clinging to self-reliance past reason, is a subtle trap that isolates as we age, turning strength into solitude. Vera, at 73, knows her limits. Stairs tire her, jars defy her grip. But she balances pride with grace. She hauls what she can, asks for help when she must, and repays it with warmth, her tea kettle a beacon of connection. Stanley, though, sees every offer as a slight. His son used to visit weekly, fixing odds and ends while they talked sports. Now, rebuffed one too many times, he stays away, unsure if Stanley even wants him there. It's not weakness Stanley fears, it's losing control. But his fortress of "I can do it" shuts others out. They don't stop caring, they stop trying. Independence matters, but not alone. Vera stands tall, yet leans when needed, keeping bonds alive. Stanley could too. Could say, "Okay, help me with this," then share a beer after. It's not surrender, it's trust. If you felt distance grow, ask, "Am I pushing them away to prove something?" Let them in. A task shared, a thanks offered. When you soften the edges, they stay, not to fix you, but to be with you. Number 10. Failing to express appreciation. New reason. Step into a cozy living room on a winter evening, a fire crackling as snow dusts the windows. Aunt Lila, her shawl draped over her shoulders, hands her niece a mug of cocoa, her eyes crinkling as she says, "You always make these visits special. Thanks for braving the cold." The niece beams, settling in for a long chat. Upstairs, Uncle Ray takes a plate of cookies from his grandson, nodding curtly with a mumbled, "Yeah, okay," before turning back to his TV. Lila's hearth glows with voices. Ray's chair sits solitary, his silence a gap no one knows how to fill. Failing to express appreciation, letting kindness go unacknowledged, is a quiet thief that erodes connection as we age, leaving others unsure they're valued. Lila, at 79, doesn't gush. She's no poet, but her thanks are steady, a thread that ties her to others. She tells her friend, "That call yesterday meant the world," and slips a note under a neighbor's door for shoveled snow. Her gratitude isn't grand, it's real, a mirror reflecting their worth. Ray, though, takes without giving back. His grandson used to bake for him, proud of the recipe. Now the visits lag, the boy unsure if Ray even likes them. Ray doesn't mean to dismiss. He's just not a talker, he'd say, but his mute acceptance feels like indifference, a cold that chills the air. Appreciation is a spark, small but vital. Lila's words light up her world. Ray could kindle his too, could say, "These are great, kid," or "I look forward to this." It's not flattery, it's noticing. If you've sensed a drift, ask, "Do I show they matter?" Try it. A thanks for that, a smile that says it. When you voice it, they linger, drawn to the warmth of being seen. Final thoughts. As the fire dims and the night deepens, take a breath and let these 10 reasons settle in your bones. Do they echo in your life? The stagnation, the grumbles, the untended ties? Don't flinch. See them as lanterns, guiding you back to what's yours to mend. Loneliness isn't your fate. Much of what pushes people away can shift with intention. Reach out like Marjorie, laugh like Jack, soften like Vera, thank like Lila. It's not about youth or perfection, it's the energy you bring, curiosity, warmth, effort that keeps them near. Ask not why they leave, but how you can make them stay. The power's still yours. Stretch it toward them and watch your later years bloom with voices that don't fade. Share below. What struck you? How will you use it? Your words fuel this journey. Thanks for walking it with me.